Well, it's 9 o'clock. I think it's time to start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to AmCham's session, Back to Office, to go or not to go. I am very glad you have joined us today. 2020 changed the way we work. For the next hour, we will be speaking about how the pandemic reshaped our working habits and what it means for the future of offices, whether we shall go back to the office or not, or how quickly. I am Blanka Vačková. I am Head of Research at JLL, and I will be a moderator of the session today. I am happy to be joined by 4 guests today. The first to speak will be Lena Popova, Head of Tenant Representation and Office Leasing at BNP Paribas, and she will cover some latest market trends. She will be followed by my colleague at JLL, Vendula Bláhová. Vendula is a senior workplace consultant, and she will tell us how offices will look after COVID-19. In addition, we have 2 guests who will be sharing their own experience with so-called new normal and how the change affected their work, their employees, and their workplaces. They are representatives of 2 different industry sectors. Rebecca Gretton is Chief People and Culture Officer at Avast, and Petr Janu is partner at Badok Law Firm. Before I hand over to Lena, please note that the session is being recorded. If you have any questions, please raise a hand, or you can write it in the chat and we will address it after the end of presentation. Also, we have reserved some time for Q&As at the end of the session. Lena, the floor is yours.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much at first place for joining us. I'm sure for many of us, we will be discussing about things we already have faced to or dealing with, and maybe just like as a start. Well, just like a year ago, we all discovered 2 new words for us. First, pandemic. Second one is coronavirus. And that time we didn't know how it would affect our lives. However, I remember just first reaction of many of us was, wow, we don't need to go to the office anymore, at least for several weeks, for several days. So it means we would spend more time with families. We will not have bosses, managers watching over our shoulders, controlling us, and no more dress code. It's great. It sounds like a paradise, or it looked like. However, of course, later, within several months of being locked down at homes, teaching children's, cooking, taking walks in forests, so many of us, including myself, we realized that maybe it would be not bad idea to get away finally to a new environment, to meet our colleagues, to meet friends, to meet people, to share ideas. And so the idea of coming back to the office and meeting appeared to be more interesting, more appealing to us. And well, basically, in what we did after pandemic, after the first lockdown last year, 2 months later, in May, we contacted our clients and questioned them whether they would like to retain, or what their expectation, whether they would like to retain their existing space, premises, offices, which they kept until pandemic, or they were thinking to surrender space, entire space, and go to the home office mode, or part of the space. And what's interesting, that that time, 80% of respondents came up with an idea. They would like to surrender 30 up to 40, maximum 50% of their current space, which means double reduction. However, what's interesting, that I would like to mention that these data are coming from May last year. And of course, it includes various sectors, banking, IT, I don't know, consumer services, whatever, just wide range. And what's interesting that last quarter, last quarter. So I hear some noises. Maybe somebody wants to ask a question. Probably not. What's interesting that last year, in the last quarter, 2020, we approached big players on the market who occupies several thousand square meters, including Rebecca, your company, vast. And we approached the same company because we have a client who is searching for several thousand square meters. And to cover this requirement, we approached again big players on the market to see what's their situation. And what's interesting, I would say 90% of all these companies who we approached in May last year re-evaluated their approach, and 90% of those companies confirmed that yes, they would carry on with offices and they would remain or retain offices as they are at the current size or volume, or reduce them maximum to 10-15%. So I think it's very interesting indicator that yes, after the pandemic started, because there were various opinions on whether we need offices or whether we don't need offices. Maybe offices would die out, and I think it's, to be honest, an extreme opinions. And let me show you maybe just one slide or two slides. First slide shows what conditions are before pandemic in last years to 18 to 19, and what are current condition and what change towards approach landlords and expectation from expectation from the office occupiers. Here it is. I guess I have only 10 minutes, so I have few more minutes to go. So this is a chart which shows that before pandemic, the situation was leases were signed for 5-10 years without break, because companies, of course, it's given the fact that companies were like massively expanding. We were dealing on the healthy economy, healthy environment, and this data, of course, like towards Prague market, or towards basically Czech Republic market, and maybe Slovakia as well. So which we are similar. And so the leases before pandemic were for 5-10 years. Standard package of incentives. Rents were increasing year per year, and expansion were taking place roughly, averagely 15-30% of existing space of the requirement. Working was mainly from the office, as we all know. So current situation is leases. That's very interesting. Leases, it's very limited number of leases in our survey that are or office occupied. They are willing to sign a contract for 5 years, 10 years. I think in this environment, it's an exception. It's given the fact that many of companies doesn't know what will come, or it's an uncertainty what to expect from the future, and how to remodel offices, how to adapt them, if and at what volume to keep them. Of course, to this I will give a word more to Vendula. She will explain more how to plan the office, how to plan smartly at the workplace, and how to plan the future operations. What's changed in terms of incentives? Incentives, of course, these days it's possible, or it is already becoming more common that landlords realize that we are dealing on an exceptional conditions and on exceptional time, and of course they are more willing to provide high incentives as a rent-free, as money to build fit-out contribution. So this changed definitely. And rents become stable or remain stable, or in certain location, in certain assets, we also recorded a slight decrease in headline rent. Also here we have space reduction by 10 comparing to last year or last 2 years where we had expansion. We have space reduction likely by 20%, which feels like we call also optimization of the space. Remote work, yeah, it's a very new trend and seems to be from now on we will all be using it. If it will be probably it will be hybrid mode and unlimited work contract, as Rebecca would cover later in her slot, and yeah, more freedom, and of course productivity should remain the same. And maybe just like later, I would welcome also question if anybody has any questions. So I will I will show you last slide, and this is the survey which was ordered last quarter in 2020 by BNP Paribas Group. The survey was conducted globally, and the provider was Fifth Wall company. And here we see clearly see preferences. So it was several hundred thousand people or employees were asked, and we can clearly see here that 5 days, how many people would like to stay 5 days at home and work from home? 12%. 3-4 days at home, 80%, and now it's decreasing. So basically half of population or half of office occupiers would still like to have a possibility to come to the office. So as a conclusion, my conclusion is I would say, yes, do we need offices? In my opinion, and those numbers clearly shows, yes, we would need offices. We'll still need to socialize. The question is, at what form? At what volume? So that's it for me probably, and Blanca, you can take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. It was very interesting. You said the survey was done when? The last one you showed us?
In last quarter 2020.
So Q4 2020. So after almost 3/4 of a year being at home, or half a year at least. Thank you. I have one question for you. Have you noticed when you're speaking to your tenants, to occupiers, whether they intend to use more flex space in the future instead of their offices, to have a combination of flex space and the headquarters, or to make some combination, or to move to flex at all? Is there any trend like that you noticed?
Flex offices, you mean external flex offices or?
External, yes.
External flex offices, to be honest, among our clients, this request is minimum, to be honest. What our clients are dealing with now, planning, of course, it's a status quo right now, because to plan for the future, to be prepared, to look at shared desk, to look how many people would stay at home, how many people would still go to the office. It's a long and complicated task, of course, for many managers to plan it. That's why many of companies, they looked at a flexi approach within their space, or also how just to fix conditions for the new lease agreement. Of course, there are several techniques how it's possible to be done, expansion or unconditional reduction, or various techniques. But more or less, I would say in our clientele, this request is minimum for flexi office.
Okay, thank you. We will see what future will bring. Thank you, Lena.
That it will not change, but at the moment it is, as I explained.
Great, thanks. Our next speaker is Vendula Blahova. Vendi, over to you.
Thank you, Blanca. For those who joined later, my name is Vendula Blahova and I work as workplace consultant. So thank you, Lena, for the opening of what is happening on the market. And this is clear statement that offices are here to stay with us, at least for majority of the companies. So I will follow up with some insights and understanding of what is happening on tenant side, why we need offices and how this should look like. I will back up myself with the presentation now, just a few slides, because I have some data from our Czech survey from JLL and also from a global one. Can you see my screen now? Can you just confirm? Blanca, can you please confirm? Yeah, okay, great. So first I will start with some context to what is happening, but we all live this, so we all probably do realize, but just to sum up what happened when COVID-19 hit the ground last year. So there was obviously a boom of working from home, digitalization, etc. But these are not new terms and not new topics on the market. COVID just accelerated the already existing trends. So we are now discussing with the companies about implementation of office sharing and changing the workplace towards activity-based workplace in a lot of cases. However, this is not new topic. It's just that we did realize that when we work partly from home and partly from the office in hybrid model in the future, the office will need to reflect these new needs we have. So what changed? What exactly changed is that work is no longer a place to go. Managers should not focus on presence of people, but rather on the results they are delivering. And of course, it's challenging for some of the companies because it can be new. And then ongoing digitalization, most of the companies knew these collaboration tools and virtual meetings already using that, but it's obviously much more common now. We are also doing those interactive sessions with online whiteboards, etc. And we are heavily relying on cloud when we have these dispersed teams. Of course, the tenants also expect flexibility from their workplace for the future. And as Lena mentioned, we expect the shortening of leases. We already see it. But it's not just about the physical space flexibility. It's also about our behavior and our flexibility. So we always recommend companies to have a backup plan because things like this can happen. And we saw in March last year that we have to react the very next day to it. Since this is a pandemic situation, it accelerated as well, focus on well-being and health of the people. So, for instance, our architects are now really focused on healthy environment, safe materials, some nanopaintings, etc., to make the workplace healthy. But also like the overall focus and realization that people are the most important asset and the workplace should be really comfortable for them so that they do deliver results. So workplace in the end transform, but how will transform, but how? It will depend on each company. We will today listen to two very different examples, I think. However, it always needs to be tailored to the needs of the company, what the company does, what are people coming to the office for. But as a general trend, I can say that workplace in the future will be more of a social hub. People will come to get and transfer knowledge, innovate, and just feel that they are still part of the company, which is really important because when we are working from home in long term now, this bonding with the company is much more difficult. So maybe I will just mention that from our global survey, we know that 70% of employees consider the office a perfect place for team building, management support, and carrying out complex tasks. Maybe we can look also on some Czech data, which we collected in May, comparing what activities are better performed in the office and on home office. So while we clearly see on the bottom that collaboration will always be better and more pleasant in the office or face to face with clients. It is a new thing and positive thing that home office brought this aspect of better work-life balance to our lives. So it is actually a good thing for people as well. And what is important from the work perspective, you can see that 80% of people, of Czech employees, consider home environment a better one for individual work. Lena showed the preferences for staying at home versus coming to the office. I actually have quite similar data, so just to confirm that these are accurate also from our side. So this is maybe more of a reminder why everyone needs something else, why some of your employees will say, I want to come to the office every day, while some will prefer to come just once a week, for instance, for a team meeting. So it really very much depends on personality of people, of course. If they are more social, they would like to come more often, on their situation at home, because, for instance, young people who share apartments or parents of small kids, they will have much more difficult situation at home for working. But it's also very reliable on industry. So each company, each industry will have different requirements from the office, and also employees have different roles. And junior people might need to come personally to the office more often than senior ones, for instance. So the more collaborative and more creative the role is, probably the more people would like to come to the office. Here are the data, which are really quite similar. Maybe I will mention that the average expectation from the employees is to stay almost 2 days a week on the home office. And here, to finish in time, I will show one example of the workplace where I can explain what I have in mind, how a social hub can look like in the future. So what we are discussing with companies, and this is one of the examples we did last year, is that it's no longer a place where to come for each type of a work. Of course, office will always have to provide spaces for focus, because it's not the case that we would only have collaborative work that day. So people who want to come to the office, for instance, every day, they will need focused time, and they will need a space that supports that and provides that. So we need to balance these two needs of collaboration and focus, so that it's quality office. However, as you can see on the bottom, the spaces for collaboration, informal and formal, are the future, and the higher emphasis is put on that. So we are basically able to accommodate more people into same size of the place, with fewer desks, with fewer typical desks, because yeah, that's good for administrative work, reading, sending emails. When you need to really focus, you can go to a library, you can go to a focus room. Of course, your people will have to have laptops for that, but yeah, that can be a barrier for desk sharing for sure if you don't have these. Then you can just relax, have a social time, which is eventually work time as well, because over coffee we often discuss work topics, don't we? So here you can see that we are really putting emphasis on providing spaces for different types of activities. It's more of a landscape. It is also achieved by these organic shapes for better acoustics and better work with the space to provide these alcoves and hives for different teams and different people. So this is one example of how this can look like, but of course it's an example. It's me as a consultant, I must say that each project is very different, and we really need to do this analytical part to understand how the company is working and what we should recommend for them. So that's it from my side, from the presentation part.
Thank you, Vandula. That's really interesting. From the slide, the last one that you showed the plan, it looks like that actually the companies will need the same size of the space as they needed before. It will be just organized in a different way. Is that right? Or
yeah, thank you for this question, Blanca. Yeah, and it kind of explains the data Lena presented at the beginning, that if you want desk sharing, yes, I think it's a good idea for a lot of companies when they will implement hybrid working. However, if you take some desks out, you need to provide some more of a seats in total to accommodate more people in the end. So basically, I think that yes, companies in some cases might end up giving up some space for sure, but not that much as it was initially supposed at the beginning, because these additional spaces, as social ones and collaborative ones, also require some space, of course.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the answer. I can't see any questions in the chat. Please don't be afraid and put your questions to our guests. They would be happy to answer. And now I would like to move on to Rebecca. Rebecca, can you please share with us your experience with setting up a new working model at Avast?
Yes, no problem at all. And thank you very much for having me today. And I just want to spend about 5 or 10 minutes explaining what we're doing at Avast and how we've responded to this kind of change in working pattern. So like many people, back in March last year, we moved to everyone on home office. We have people in 27 countries all over the world, but the majority of our staff, about 60%, are in the Czech Republic, in Prague and Brno. So what we thought then was that would be a temporary arrangement. It was quite straightforward for us because the majority of our staff very easily can work digitally. And we did make an attempt to do a return to offices over the summer last year. However, we had 2 scenarios where we had infection within the offices, and because we are a digital business, we really asked ourselves the question by the end of July, is this the right thing to be doing? Because we have spread infection despite all of our good efforts in the organisation. We came to the conclusion that as we do have the ability to work remotely very easily, that it was the right thing to keep our offices closed. And so we did reclose our offices completely globally from the start of August. We were underway last summer with a survey amongst our staff about how they felt about home working and what they wanted in the future. And our survey last summer told us that everybody really wanted some form of flexibility. So to the point that Vandila's just made about the different personas and people wanting different arrangements, we heard that too. But we had about 50% of our staff telling us that they did not want to come back to the office on a regular basis at all. And I think that's really important. So we will never say that people can't come to the office, but we had half of our staff saying we just really, we want home office to be our normal place of work. So we did some more research over the autumn about what that meant. So where possible, we looked to reduce the footprint of our offices a little bit, not substantially. I'm talking about a 10% reduction, just because it was obvious to us that we would not be coming back to offices in the same way. And we also worked with our colleagues to work out what would be the right solution. So from the autumn, we explained that we would be putting in new arrangements from January the 1st, where people could choose either to stay in their... I had a glitch there. Either to stay in their existing arrangement, or they could choose to move to what we call a work from anywhere arrangement, and people had the choice. So even if you stay on your existing arrangement, everyone's at home office at the moment, but you could go back to the office when we're ready and have flexibility. But we also put in place this arrangement called work from anywhere, which means there is no expectation that you will regularly attend the office. You can do, you're welcome to come, but you don't have to. And in fact, this is to do with where we're setting up people's primary workstation. So if you have a work from anywhere arrangement, then we are setting everything up for you to be completely flexible. So obviously, for most people, that means working from home at the moment. But what it means is that we're setting people up in a very mobile way. Laptops, data cards, data packages on their cell phones so that they can create personal hotspot. So, for example, that means for some of my colleagues in the Czech Republic is that they can choose to move between maybe working from their apartment in Prague during the week and working in their cottage at the weekend, or going to their cottage for longer periods. I've got a lot of young staff, you know, who like to go hiking and skiing when it's possible, you know, who want to be able to take their kit, put it in their car or their motorhome and go. And so we've enabled that to happen. So when we asked people because we did a contractual variation to allow them to formally take up this option, when we asked the question of staff around how many people wanted that level of flexibility, 52% of our staff have moved to that arrangement. So it's huge for us, really, really huge. That means that we then are in the middle of a redesign of our offices. So I mentioned earlier that our offices are formally closed at least until July the 1st, and we're using that period to remodel our offices, very similar to some of the examples that have been given earlier. We're reducing desk space significantly, putting in more meeting room space so that people can co-create. We're also creating more informal meeting areas for socializing, and the 7th floor of our enterprise building in Prague, which had been a big area of our canteen, we're changing that space to make it more flexible. We're actually putting smaller kind of eating and drinking points on each floor, because we don't expect to have a big canteen situation in the future, and we're increasing our childcare provision because we believe that the way that we use our offices in the future is going to be quite different, and people will want to be able to come and maybe bring their kids, for example, in the summer holidays, you know, so that they can pop in, have a meeting in a casual way, have their kids in the office, and then be able to pop out again. And so we're completely changing our approach to the workplace. I think what's interesting for us as this pandemic goes on, and I think honestly, now I believe looking at, because obviously I have responsibilities globally, that the vaccination arrangements are going to mean a return to normality is probably going to be more like 2022 than 2021. Terribly depressing, but I think that's honestly where we believe. I think by then the usage of offices, and in fact the way that people link their home life to their working life, will have been so different for nearly 2 years that I think it will be you know, a really fascinating opportunity actually to think about how we make this work, but I just don't believe it will be the same. But that's a personal view from a digital organisation, and I'm very you know, I'm very thoughtful about people working retail, hospitality, manufacturing. It's not the same. I recognise it's not the same. Yes, but that's our perspective from Avast. I'm very happy to answer any questions either today or in the future about what we're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It was great. It sounds like an amazing journey you've been through, and you still are. And I have one question. Actually, how you are going to measure performance of your employees when they are not in the office very often, especially, I mean, those that are not digital working all the time.
Okay, so So people will know Andrei Volchek, who's our chief executive, and he's very visionary about the culture for people. So honestly, we sat down at the end of 2020 and we said to ourselves, we have had, like everyone, the most unexpected and chaotic year. You know, we've had COVID, we've had people working from home, you know, we've been busy in our business anyway. I mean, COVID has meant that tech firms have been busier, you know, just because of everyone using the internet a lot more. And we did not, we worked with our employees, we trusted our employees to do a good job. And, you know, we had a positive year in Avast last year, you know, in terms of the performance of the business. So we really asked ourselves at the end of last year, given that it was chaos, it was COVID, it was everything that could happen, and still the business performed well, we feel that we can trust our staff. Now, obviously, we have some very highly technical people in Avast. So if we wanted to, I'm sure we could find a way to put AI into their laptops and check what they were doing, but that would be crazy. So we have taken the view that in a crisis, our staff did the right thing. And so we believe we can trust them. So our view is that we are not heavy on performance management. In fact, we are trusting our staff to do the right thing. We have complete freedom in terms of hours of work, days of work. Vacation time is completely flexible for people. And we have taken the position that our colleagues are worthy of our trust. And so far that has been the case. But I accept that that is a very different way, and even for us it's very different. We've kind of taken our hands off and said we trust you, and so far we feel very positive about that.
That's great and sounds very optimistic. That's really cool. I would have maybe one more question if there is nobody else in the audience who would like to ask a question, and that would be regarding company's culture, because this is also very important for corporations, for organizations. And if people are not coming to the office and they work remotely all the time, they might lose this bonding, as Wendy was speaking about. So do you have any plans how to tackle this?
Yeah, I think the responsibility comes then to the leadership team to really put a lot of effort into that culture. So in our business, we have 2 kind of weekly email communications to keep people connected. One by me from human resources, you know, what's happening in the business, trainings, you know, messages, that sort of thing. Andre does an all company email every Monday to explain what's happening in the business, big things going on. We also have a monthly all hands for all staff. And then we have a whole range of digital communication methods to keep people connected, groups. We use Slack, we use Miro, we use a whole range of different tools. But I think the other thing for me is that we do quite a lot of informal things as well. So clubs and hobby groups and things like that to connect people together. It is not a solution, and it is not perfect, and it does not replace human relationships, but we are trying to do what we can to keep people connected. But it's not the same. You know, this is my apartment in Prague, and I would much rather be with people face to face, but we are doing what we can. And I think, in fact, this year we are doing more even than last year, because I think we now think that it's going to be longer term rather than shorter term. Last year we were saying every 3 months, or maybe in September, maybe in December, maybe. And now I think we've stopped saying maybe and saying, OK, this is how it is, at least, you know, for some time this year. And so we need to work hard on a solution and not keep hoping that things will be different, because I think we now believe it's going to be longer than we thought. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Sounds like it will be the case, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Rebecca.
It's a pleasure.
And, thank you. And our last speaker is Petr Janu, and he is from Badog Law Firm. And of course, we can expect that probably as a professional services company, they will might face slightly different challenges that digital organization like Avast. So, Petr, over to you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, exactly as you said, we are facing slightly different challenges, even though in general they might look same. Maybe at the beginning I would like to introduce ourselves. So to give you an idea, we occupy over 700 square meters. We are about around 40 people, 30 of them lawyers and tax advisors. And our work greatly consists of collaborative work and individual work. I would say half-half. So it's very important for us that the co-workers have their own space. So we, even before the pandemic, we had individual offices occupied usually by two people, one of them senior and one of them junior, so the junior can learn from the senior. Obviously that's changed. Now we are only one person per office, which basically made us and of course our basic motto is freedom but responsibility. So as long, even before the pandemic, as long as the work was done, and you can see it pretty easy in our industry, as long as the work is done and the client is happy, we didn't mind home office even before the pandemic. So I would say roughly 1/4 of people would prefer to work from home even before pandemic. That moved during the pandemic to around, I would say, half people prefer to go to work to the offices, half prefer to work from home. Of course, we also see regimes that people before the pandemic they would go to the offices 5 times a week. During the pandemic, they this is my case actually, they go for 3 days. So I try to concentrate the collaborative part of work to the 3 days and do the individual one from home. We actually lease an extra roughly 10% to offices during the pandemic, just to give us space, just to be sure that everyone who wants to go to the office, that they have a place to stay, basically. And that's basically that's from that perspective. And what changed for us during the pandemic, we are pretty conservative bunch of people. So we didn't have long distance approaches to all of our systems. The pandemic basically forced us to do so. So nowadays, because we thought, well, the safest way to keep our data is just not to have the long distance. Now we do have long distance. That's one big change. We refreshed our equipment, so made sure that everyone can work from home, because some of us still have desktops. We decreased the number of persons in the office to 1, as I say that. And then that we did straight from the beginning. We wanted to be sure that we can close the offices anytime, and the company still works and goes on as if it wasn't closed. It happened to us only once in the autumn, because for 2 weeks, because we had a couple of COVID cases. But I don't think we are going to close for longer term, because of course our focus is on M&A, restructuring, and insolvency on pretty big projects, and for that you need to meet with people, with clients, and even the co-workers. It's still, from our perspective, is still the most effective way to meet, basically to meet in person. And also I see that the clients in last spring during the first wave of the pandemic, I could see that we helped a lot the clients that had to close their offices with either provided the space for them to meet, or we were able to help. Our offices were still running, so we were able to help differently than before with arranging stuff. To even it was I could see that it was appreciated a lot, that we enabled long distances of hard copies, long distances execution of hard copies of agreements, for instance. So I think we are mid-size firm, so I think the new service we could provide for the bigger organizations is even this kind of service, because I can imagine that for bigger firms it's more complicated, the pandemic. What we also did, we were thinking about that even already before the pandemic, but the pandemic forced us to make this faster. We provide space for kids, so our coworkers that have no significant others that could look after the kids while they are not going to school, we provide space for them, and usually we can arrange for someone who's looking after them, after the kids. We changed our approach. We now look at it that it could last probably even longer than 2021, 22. I think we are our mindset is now at the beginning, as Rebecca said, it was like maybe next month it will change and be the same as before. But we totally changed our mindset in that respect, and we look at it. It might last for forever, basically, to be honest. And which I think helped a lot. The coworkers I could feel and I could see that my colleagues, most of them looked at it still as like it's a temporary arrangement. So they weren't. They're pretty conservative again. Lawyers usually are. So they wouldn't like to change their habits, and they would still think that they will come back to the old times. Now I can see a big change, that they look at it differently, and even those older colleagues who still denied Teams and all these gadgets last year, they are all embracing it now. So that's a big change. And of course, what we are lacking, and we don't really have a plan for still, is how we bond, because for us it's very important that the coworkers, the colleagues feel well. So our policy regarding the offices is and always was that each office needs to be let's say nice, with a window. There's no big differences between the offices, and we need our people to feel welcome and feel comfortable. And of course, the bonding part is huge in this respect. And we did outings at least twice a year. We met, I think once a month, somewhere in the city. There was always an occasion to meet, and we like that. And to be honest, we didn't think of a way to overcome this difficulty. If the pandemic lasts longer than 2021, I think we will have to think of something on the way. That's probably the only like big difficulty from my perspective that the pandemic brought us. All other stuff can be like and can be arranged differently with the same outcome from my perspective. And of course, there's some side effects, like for instance, we support young through chemistry gallery. We support the young artists. We do previews, painting previews in our offices. We cannot do that at the moment, so that those are some side effects. I would say it's not nothing core, but also painful.
Thank you, Petr. I just wanted to ask you whether do you expect that after COVID is over, that you will come to the previous model of working in your offices, or you will implement something that you learned throughout this period?
I think we will emphasize even more that people have total freedom about the arrangement. I mean, we are, as I said, we are 40 people. It's nothing huge. We can do special arrangements for anyone. We even have colleagues with small children, and they work like 2 hours a day from home. Any amount of work they can handle, or they want to handle, they are free to do so. So in this respect, I don't think we will get back to the arrangement before, but it's not that we would like to or we would not like to. It's all about the people. I think that the people want the people, even the conservative lawyers will prefer home office more than they did before. I would say, as I said, that the collaborative work and the individual work is like 50-50 in general. I would think that the people would prefer to work sometimes from home more often than they did before. They realized it could be the work could be done more effectively in some cases than from the office.
I see. So it was reviewed as a benefit, and they will still have their own office and their fixed desk in the office.
Exactly.
That's the plan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we have tried to be pretty generous, I think, regarding the offices. It's important part of our business. So
for the future, you will need the same space as you need now.
Yeah, but more slightly bigger.
Slightly bigger.
20% bigger.
And so you plan to have, you will have 2 people per office as you used to have, and that's when the pandemic is over. Yeah.
We would like to go back to this arrangement because it turns out it's pretty effective in terms of learning.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Petr.
Thank you.
We have still 7 minutes to the end of the session, so if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and you can ask our guests. Well, if there are no questions, thank you. Our session is then coming to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, there is a question from Camila. So I will read it. I have a question to Vendula and Lena. After talking to companies, is the management in the companies open for a new way of working in the Czech Republic, or are they rather conservative at the moment?
So who would start first? Okay, maybe just like I would take a lead. From perspective of our clients, yeah, it's not, I would say it's still in the process of creation. It's still of the process of creation. However, the management of our clients is already open and of course working with this scenario, and it's completely different as it was like in 2019 to 18. So yes, in this way, I would say yes, they're just like they're open and want to change it.
Maybe I will follow up. What I'm experiencing from my point is that mostly the companies whose leases are about to expire do contact us and use this opportunity to really reimagine their offices and address these new needs. And the management themselves, they are actually eager to implement these new ways of working normally. So asking us, can we have sharing ratio, or just saying we want to have sharing ratio, tell us how to do it. What is the difficult part, of course, always is when I talk to the employees, because even though people do want to have home office as part of their new normal. They also sometimes expect their managers to, or their employer to provide fixed desks. So that's obviously contradictory. So we also offer change management to these cases to engage people in the change and to make sure that the transition is smooth. But I would say that companies are already thinking about it. Just it's not that common in our region, or at least Czech Republic and Slovakia, that companies would already be rebuilding their current offices. I think that a lot of employers are still thinking what to do. So mostly those who are about to move contact us at the moment.
It's exactly as I mentioned, Vendula, thank you very much. It's exactly as I mentioned earlier. Many companies or many managers or top management of our clients are at the position of now planning what to do, what's next, to be prepared for as soon as possible for this transformation. So, and yes, of course, everybody is working on this scenario.
But we recently had a JLL webinar, global one, and there was an important statement that the biggest mistake is to do nothing at this point. So the crucial thing is to understand your situation, your exact situation of your company, and address it. So you saw these two examples are really different, so it will be yours.
Yes, I think it was a great closing point. The worst isn't to do nothing at this moment. So I would like to thank you all. A huge thank you to Lena, Vendula, Rebecca, and Petr. I hope all you enjoyed the session. You have learned something new, and have a lovely day, and see you some next time. Goodbye.
Thank you everyone. Thank you panelists, and thank
Goodbye.
you people who participate. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.